Welcome to 10 Songs, where each week we dive into the connections to the music that you love, from cover versions and little-known gems to those tracks you just skipped over. We'll show you the common thread across the music you love today and help you find a new favorite with just 10 songs. Hey everybody, welcome to 2023 and welcome to a new episode of 10 Songs. 10 Songs where we love to sit down with artists that you know and help you find new tracks by them that hopefully you'll love. And I was thinking exactly about that. What's an artist that people think or it was a one-hit wonder or really doesn't understand the catalog by this person? And as I was listening to some music in the car, it came to me one of my favorite artists and someone who I don't think people are really familiar with the depth of this person's catalog is Robert Palmer. So I decided I would dedicate this week's show to Robert Palmer. For those of you who don't know, Robert Palmer was a British musician. He was a singer and songwriter who was known for the soulful, Cajun, Caribbean, smooth, sophisticated style, really mashing up music in a way that so many people have not really done. Was born in Batley, West Yorkshire, England in 1949. Began his career as a musician in the 60s, performing with various bands and went on to have hits in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. His breakthrough came in the 1970s. We'll talk about that with the album Double Fun, which had the song Every Kind of People. And most folks know him for his big hit in the 80s, Addicted to Love, and in the 90s, Simply Irresistible and She Makes My Day. As I said earlier, he has a super eclectic music style. He took rock, pop, blues, reggae, Cajun, Zydeco, soul, and brought them all together. And he also took a page out of Brian Ferry's book and going, hey, I want to look stylish and fashionable, and wore these great suits and sunglasses and things on stage. And it really kind of set him apart, especially in the 80s where people were with the big hair, the wild clothes. There he was in a double-breasted suit, very simple. Sadly, he died of a heart attack in 2003 at the age of 54. He was a heavy smoker, but his music continues to go on and be incredibly popular. And today we'll dig into it. So we start our story in 1974. Robert's first album has a hit with the song Sneakin' Sally Through the Back Alley. He is at the time living in New Orleans, very influenced by kind of the Dr. John Little Feat, Meters, Cajun Zydeco sound. It's a very, Cajun-y sounding track. What's interesting was Lowell George, who's the guitarist for Little Feat, ended up producing the track, and the Meters were his backup band, which is kind of cool. It cracked the US Top 100, got no play at all in England, but it was his first sort of foray into people hearing him. And definitely a very different track than other things that he would go on and do later. So he moves to New York, spends a lot of time down in the Caribbean, and really falls in love with reggae music and Caribbean music, which is sort of the next step from the Cajun funk and soul Zydeco that he was listening to. Here's the Toots and the Maytall song, which Pressure Drop, 1975, which later would get done by The Clash, and does it for, and names the album after Pressure Drop. And again, has a decent minor hit with it. It's a great version of it. I encourage you to check it out. It's really good. So it's at this time that his record label said to him, well, you've had like 2 hits. We want you to do this on your next album. And his manager's like, we want you to do this. So he doesn't really want to do any of that. He really likes kind of mixing up different sounds and vibes, but he's not getting a hit single and this sort of thing. So he gets pressured into making an album. And he even calls the album Some People Can Do What They Like, alluding to the fact that he cannot do what he likes. Album comes out in 1976, absolute failure. So he goes back and says, all right, I'm going to make one more album. Stop telling me what to do. I think I can make a great hit, but I get to do it on my own terms. I'm going to go spend some time in the Caribbean and figure this out. So he's in the Caribbean, and who does he run into but Andy Fraser of the band Free? And they start chatting, and Andy has this great song that Robert listens to and says, if we were to kind of funk this up a little bit, I think this would make a great track. And for his album Double Fun in 1978, he does the Caribbean-infused Every Kind of People, which becomes his first big hit. Number 16 on the Billboard charts, does very well in the UK. If you want to hear a cool, slow, funky version of the song, I encourage you to check out the Kinks version. But Every Kind of People just has that great sort of chic sounding, bass. Oh, 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 oh. No. Just really kind of cool. Got a great sound. Then his voice just kind of just flows in through the middle of it, and he really gets a chance to show off his soulful singing over the sort of funky bottom. And it really stands apart from a lot of other things that are out on radio in 76, which is the beginnings of, disco and some of the AM soft rock. And this is more elevated. And I really love the track. So let's take a listen to number one of my 10 songs for Robert Palmer, Every Kind of People, from the 1978 album, Double Fun. All right. So Robert then says, all right, that's cool. I love doing that, but I'm listening to a lot of rock stuff because now it's 1979 and rock is pretty big at this point. Disco's already starting to fade out. And he decides he wants to make more of a pure rock album and surrounds himself with some great guys. And he finds this old track from a guy named Moon Martin, who did a song called Doctor Doctor, Bad Case of Loving You. And it is the most soulless, monotone version of a song that you could ever listen to in your life. I encourage you to check it out. If you know the actual track, the Robert Palmer one, you're going to listen to this one and go, oh my God, how could he just kill this horrible track? But yeah, I don't like it. You may, but I'm not a fan of the Moon Martin. So releases Bad Case of Loving You, which has just that great no, whoa, and he gets a nice chance to really kind of play with his voice. And you have that great, sort of hold on that single note at the end and the drum hit for, I like songs that have a good ending. Don't just fade out, but have a really good ending. And that one does it. So it's 1979. It's on his album Secrets. And he puts out Bad Case of Loving You on the black and white cover with him shaving. Great track. The whole album is really good. There's some really good tracks on it, but that one especially really stood out and had a more Foreigner, I think, if I look at bands like Foreigner, Toto kind of feel. Really sort of influencing them influencing him, etc. So from his 1979 album Secrets, let's take a listen to Bad Case of Loving You, Doctor Doctor. All right, it is now 1980, and Robert the Chameleon loves to change and likes to flip things around. So he decides, I like this new wave thing that's starting to hit. I think I'd like to kind of incorporate some of it. So who does he go to produce the album and co-write songs with? But Chris Frantz, the drummer from the Talking Heads, who also is the drummer in Tom Tom Club, which is making really unique music with Brian Eno at the time. They have their, first few albums have come out, Zimbra, things like that are really unique and lots of cool sort of Afrobeat percussion. And one of our topics of our previous shows, Mr. Gary Newman, who absolutely is sort of the founder of synth pop and, industrial synth pop, and comes together with them and does the album Clues, which has the great opening track, Looking for Clues, which is this really kind of cool poppy upbeat song that you can definitely hear the Chris Frantz influence on it. Then does a cover of Gary Newman's I Dream of Wires and does a beautiful version of it. But the song that really stands out on this album is John and Mary. John and Mary is an amazing track. Matter of fact, there's a great remix of it by Brian Ferry and Todd Terry that came out a few years ago that is absolutely gorgeous that I encourage you to check out. I actually, dare I say, like it more than the original. But the thing about this was also Robert Palmer knew music videos were going to become a thing and shot a music video for this. And he's sitting there and he's at a beach and he sings this beautiful song about these two lost lovers that, can't connect and who they are and not knowing each other. And it has this beautiful soulful and longing to it. His voice really brings it together, this kind of cool bass and synth. It's a really unique track. It certainly is not a bubblegum hit or a pop song in any way, shape, or form, even though it is a pop song. It has a depth and a soulfulness to it. And I think he really showed a lot of artists who were thinking about moving in that direction in the early 80s that you can do new wave, but it can have heart and it can have soul and it can have a depth to it. It does not have to be this top level bubblegum pop music that so many bands did, and why we had so many one-hit wonders in the 80s with great songs that were memorable but single hits. As you take a look at, Safety Dance and Pop Goes the World from Men at Work, and you look at things along that line, that Tarzan Boy and things like that. They're great fun tracks. Matthew Wilder, Break My Stride, but they didn't have the depth to continue to move on, where John really shows that he does at this point. So let's take a listen to probably one of my top, if not my favorite, Robert Palmer track from the 1980 album Clues. Let's listen to The Haunting, John and Mary. All right, we are back with track number 4. It's at this point he decides to do a half live, half studio album. I think he had seen a lot of success with Clues. He was working on some stuff. He kind of got stuck, decided to go more synth pop. So he did an album called Maybe It's Live, partial live tracks, partial pre-recorded tracks. But one song on it really stuck out, and that is Some Guys Have All the Luck, which you've probably heard the version by Rod Stewart that was covered later. A lot of folks have covered the song, but the original is this really great song. And what makes it unique is this, lots of little hooks and sounds, this boring kind of sound that comes up, and this great bass sound, and his voice that goes from, really low, do you think it's an all right? All right. Oh, to get a kiss from Lady Luck. Oh, yeah. I want you so much. It's like all over the place. It's almost frantic at times. And then the drums come in, and then there's this great chorus. And then it goes back into the sort of, it expands and contracts in a really unique way. So, the song is really great. I encourage you to check it out. It's a really awesome song. And, really gives him a chance to breathe as he's working on his 1983 album, which will come out a year later, called Pride. Now, Pride is an almost full synth album, meaning it's deep in the new wave, um, waters. There are, of course, some drums and bass and things like that, but it's less funky and it's a lot more electronic. And I think a song that really stands out from that is the song You Are in My System. The original was done by a band called The System. It was actually done as sort of an electronic funk soul. And he takes it and very much makes it his own. Um, it's a really unique song, and I think it sets up nicely kind of for the next chapter of what Robert's going to be doing. And now he's taken all these different genres and mixed them up and gotten a really good handle on it. The 80s are now coming into full swing. And out of all the artists, he's one of those ones who could really step in and do something unique with another artist. So this is really, I think, a big turning point in his career, is the album Pride. There's also a great track called Pride on it, which is Electro-Caribbean, that I really love. There's a great remix of it that comes on one of his later collection albums that I encourage checking out. But let's take a break. Let's listen to the song Pride. No, sorry, You Are in My System from the album Pride, 1983. And then we'll talk about the second chapter of Robert Palmer's career. All right, that was You Are in My System, 1983. It is July 23rd, 1983, and Robert Palmer has been asked by Duran Duran to perform at a charity concert at Aston Villa football grounds, and he becomes friends with members of the band. It is also at this time that Duran Duran, their drummer has left, Roger Taylor has left. And what's interesting is there are now two famous drummers in rock and roll named Roger Taylor. There is the drummer from Duran Duran, and there is, of course, the drummer from Queen, both with the same name, both drummers, which I always found kind of interesting and don't know how many other people have actually thought about that. But it's at this time that Duran Duran, Simon and, and his keyboardist, Nick and Simon want to go one direction with Duran Duran. Andy and John want to go more hard rock, and they're kind of fighting and decide, you know what, let's take a break. Let's kind of go off and go do some stuff on our own and whatever. And Andy goes off. He does a song called Take It Easy for a movie that was a very minor hit. I think I own the 45 somewhere. Simon and Nick go off and do Arcadia the So Red the Rose album, which had the song Election Day and Lady Ice, which is on that. Cool trivia question. Who does the background voice, the talking part in Election Day? It is Grace Jones. And it is Grace Jones because Grace was one of the villains, along with Christopher Walken, in the James Bond movie to which they did the theme song to. So that's how that connection happened. But anyways, the guys are chatting with Robert and said, hey, we're doing this project. We kind of need a lead singer. Would you like to come in and come write some songs with us and sing it? And they do. So it's John and Andy. And, Robert says, hey, we need to get a great drummer because if we're going to do stuff, and you want to have rock and funk is the way to go. And it's going to be so different than the stuff that your other bandmates are doing. So they're able to get the funkiest drummer in all of funkdom, outside of probably James Brown's original drummer, and that is Mr. Tony Thompson, the drummer from Chic. They go in to the studio, they record a bunch of great songs, and as they're coming up trying to figure out a name for the band, they decide to name it after the New York recording studio where it was recorded, Power Station. Power Station did some great songs. They did an amazing, probably the best cover of the T-Rex song Bang a Gong, which has been covered by so many people. Also did an awesome video because Robert really knows how to leverage videos. Other great tracks in that album are, of course, Some Like It Hot, which was a good hit. Murderous, Still in Your Heart, The Heat Is On, all awesome. And they go in, they record the album. They even play at Live Aid. But then it was time to go on tour. And Robert didn't want to tour. He says, look, I don't need the money. Wasn't an experience that would set me up for retirement touring. He was actually working on the sound for his next record. Power Station said, that's okay. It's all ours anyways. And they went to Palmer, and Palmer said, look, I gave Power Station that sound. They took it from me, not the other way around, because I had already done the rock and the funk stuff and brought it all together. And he was focusing on his next album, which would actually be one of his biggest ever. But the Power Station moment is a great moment. It is a great album, did much better than Arcadia. So I'm sure that was great for John and Andy to show that they can not only go off and go do their own thing and do it. Plus, John has always been very, very influenced by the kind of Chic sound. If you take a listen to, Hungry Like the Wolf, you've got that plucked bass, and he likes that kind of kind of sound. And he always has. And it's funny because later that would come full circle, but we'll save that for a Duran Duran show. But Power Station. So great album. Probably one of the best sort of team ups ever when it comes to creating not just a single song, but a whole album of stuff with other and creating a whole new band just from people who already had successful careers. So let's take a listen to Get It On, Bang a Gong, the T-Rex cover by Power Station featuring Mr. Robert Palmer. All right. It is now 1985. We are in the middle of the 80s. Robert has had great solo career success, but not quite hit that top level yet. Power Station, for the people who didn't know him, has really got him in front of a whole new audience. And he decides that he wants to continue to work with Tony Thompson and Andy Taylor. Also works with Bernard Edwards, who was one of the producers for Chic to do his next album, because he goes, I want to take everything I've done. I want a rock album that has like a funk and a soul, heart and soul to it. And I want to create something really great. And I want to make really good videos too, because I'm realizing this MTV thing is absolutely huge. And he comes out with the biggest album of his career, Riptide. The big song, of course, from that album is Addicted to Love, that great groundbreaking video with him and the models behind him all wearing black and white and him singing and none of them really playing, but it didn't matter. But it was so simple yet hypnotic, the video. And it gives him a background, but yet really gets it to focus in on him and in full swagger, full style with his suits and Looking Like That is absolutely tremendous. Other great tracks on that album are Discipline of Love, with an amazing, amazing bass by Tony Thompson, and that great, Andy Taylor growling guitar that runs through it. Flesh Wound, which is kind of fun. Trick Bag. But the second biggest song from that album is an old Shirelles cover, and it is "I Didn't Mean to Turn You On," which I think is a great song and technically better than "Addicted to Love." By the way, if you want a great cover of "Addicted to Love," check out the Sonic Youth version. It's pretty twisted and kind of fun, and it really makes fun of it. But Robert hits huge success, number one in the US, number 5 in the UK. The video goes into heavy rotation, and he has a huge selling album and is pretty much set for life now if he wants to, with these tracks. And he's finally hit the level of success and independence to do what he wants to do at this point. So again, rather than pick Addicted to Love, if you've never heard Addicted to Love, you should listen to it. It's a great track. It's got a really great Andy Taylor guitar line on it. But for me, it's "I Didn't Mean to Turn You On," which has got great synth and bass, and his voice really, I think, does some amazing things in it. So from the 1985 album Riptide, let's listen to "I Didn't Mean to Turn You On." All right. We are now at number 7. Palmer now moves to Switzerland, decides to set up his own recording studio there, and is going to do his next album. It's now 1988. He's taken some time off. He was obviously touring and all of that. And decides to add some bossa nova rhythms, more heavy rock to this, and some soul. The track "Simply Irresistible" becomes a number 2 US hit. It becomes a top UK hit. Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band plays guitar on this. He has another song, "She Makes My Day," which hits number 6 in the UK, but does not do well here in the US. But from the album Heavy Nova, my favorite track is actually, and again, Robert doing lots of covers and making them his own, and I think it's awesome, does a cover of the Gap Band song "Early in the Morning." And the best part of the song is not only just the great guitar and stuff, but the bass. There's a bass solo in the middle that Tony does that is insane, like out of this world, so good. That just brings the whole song together. And he's done some great covers. He does, later he'll do some we'll talk about, but the version of "Early in the Morning," the Gap Band track, is one of my all-time favorite covers. I think it's phenomenal. The track "Simply Irresistible" builds on top of that "Addicted to Love," but still great track with his voice sort of dueling with each other and some nice kind of synth stuff. And he makes a great pop track with a lot of really good hooks in it. And that's what makes a great pop track. So from the 1988 album Heavy Nova, we will listen to "Early in the Morning," cover of the Gap Band song. All right, it's now 1990, and Robert wants to get back to his roots again. He's like, "Hey, this has been great doing all this rock stuff, but people are going to buy my next album. I've now had 2 hit albums in a row. Whatever I do next, people are going to buy because they're going to expect it to be another Simply Irresistible, Addicted to Love, etc." And that's not what I want to do. It's not what he's ever done in his career. Usually, after an album or 2 of one type of thing, he moves to something else and decides to go back to his roots and do a more soulful and again a little more of that Caribbean influence. So he gets Brent Bourgeoisie of the band Bourgeoisie Tag, for those who remember, Sneaky Pete of the Flying Burrito Brothers, and Guy Pratt, who has played with everybody: Pink Floyd, The Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen, Iggy Pop, Tears for Fears, even Tom Jones. Really gets himself a great all-star lineup, and does the song "I'll Be Your Baby Tonight." And to make it even better, he invites UB40 to sing it with him. And it is an awesome track. It is one of those, if I'm sitting outside by a pool or it's a vacation and I'm putting together a mix, "I'll Be Your Baby Tonight," which is actually originally a Bob Dylan song, is almost always on it, because it is one of those songs that you want to hear in summer, wearing sandals and drinking a beer, drinking a cocktail, and listening to this. And the UB40 just adds that next level to it. And they do such a great job on the track. So I picked "I'll Be Your Baby Tonight." The other great track on this album that I also really love is his cover of the Marvin Gaye "Mercy, Mercy Me, I Want You." is beautifully blended together with a horn section in it to make it even better. It's gorgeous. It shows off the soulfulness of his voice. The album did do well, but for a lot of people, it wasn't what they had expected to hear from Robert. And I love the fact that he's like, I don't want to make the album that people expect me to make. I want to make the album that I want to make. And he does that, and he does it really well and makes a what I think is a great album. A lot of people stuck with him and went, "Hey, I like this new sound," which really was sort of his old sound brought back. But was not afraid to say, "I don't care. I've done that. Been there, done that. I want to go do something else." And he decided to work with all new people and take all those different sounds he likes and write all new songs around it. And there are a few great rock tracks on this too. But from the album Don't Explain, 1990, my favorite track off that album, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight with Robert Palmer featuring UB40. All right, it's now 1992, and he decides to go even further in a new direction, do something he hasn't done, which is a Tin Pan Alley classic crooner tribute album, where he does Love is a Tender Trap, which actually charted in the UK, does Witchcraft, Honeysuckle Rose, but picks all of these great old tunes, a la kind of Michael Bublé and other singers like that, and just does a whole album of these great old classic tracks, which again, some folks love. Other folks go, "This is not the Robert Palmer that I know and that I love." His version of Love is a Tender Trap on it, I think, is absolutely amazing. It's beautiful and wonderful and soulful and honest and genuine, and you really get to hear his vocal chops on it. But for a lot of people, was not what they wanted to hear, but it still did well. And again, decided this is the music I want to sing and what I want to make and what I want to do. And I love the fact that he decided to go in this direction and was, had the confidence to do it and convince folks to do it. So the 1992 album, Riding High, Love is a Tender Trap. He then takes another year off and decides to come back and does what would be pretty much his final album. He had two more, but it was more cuts from other things that he had done. This was his last full album of original, even though there's covers on it, material. And it's the album Honey. He gets Nuno Betancourt, the guitarist from Extreme, who I think is also one of the most underrated guitarists out there. He's freaking brilliant. Go watch him on YouTube or listen to the Extreme track. If you only know them for More Than Words, go listen to the song Play With Me. The opening is the Flight of the Bumblebee, which he plays on guitar. Yeah. They also, Extreme, did the best Queen cover ever at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. And what I love about their Queen medley was they had all of these little things that true Queen fans know, little guitar flicks and little bass flicks and vocal things and stuff like that. And he's an amazing student of music. But for me, the track that I was not expecting that really blew me away as he decides to go back more towards rock and pop and soul and kind of a mix of everything on this album is the amazing, amazing, amazing version of Devo's Girl You Want. Kicks it up a notch, does it double speed with just this great no, crunchy guitar that goes through the whole thing and turns it into almost metal rock song with his beautiful voice sort of going through the whole middle. So my number 10 track is Girl You Want featuring Nuno Betancourt on guitar from the 1994 album Honey. All right. It is at this point that the guys from Power Station come back and say, "Hey, you know what? We should do another album." And they start getting in talks for it. The album actually happens, but John Taylor backs out because Duran has now, it was at the point where their guitarist, they had, were having issues. Andy was out. John was back in. Things were happening. We're getting to the Ordinary World time, and then their guitarist had to leave the band because they found that he was also a male porn star. Lots of fun stuff there. We'll save it for the Duran Duran show. But does another album. It's okay. One or two tracks. She Can Rock It. Love Conquers All. The Beatles cover Taxman isn't bad, but it's certainly nothing like the original, lightning in a bottle that was that first album. There's then two more albums that come out, Rhythm and Blues and Drive, that are unavailable on streaming. They're compilations of things that he was working on and some old songs that he had done. And then he died shortly after. He was working right up pretty much until the time that he died. Um, what was great about Robert was he was completely uninterested in the excesses of rock and roll. He was a heavy smoker and was smoking as many as 60 cigarettes a day, but was unlike so many singers and rock stars out there who stay in that same genre. I love Brian Ferry, but Brian's always going to sing a similar type of song. I was happy to see Brian go back and do um, a whole thing of 40s versions of his songs and things like that. But Robert has changed over and over and over again. Now, I talked earlier about his amazing Marvin Gaye cover of Mercy, Mercy Me, I Want You, which I've made my track 11 because we always do a track 11 on this show. And it is a gorgeous song, and a song that if you've never heard him sing is one of the things I would want to leave you with at the end of this show. But the takeaway, hopefully, is that you go back and look at Robert Palmer and realize he is an amazing musician who crossed genres and boundaries, who never did what he was supposed to do and didn't always make the album that people expected, but the album that he wanted to make. And more often than not, made an album that, really was different than everything else out at the time, but stayed in the zeitgeist of music. Also, as someone who was a trendsetter in leveraging music videos, in going in a complete opposite direction of how he dressed when everybody else was wearing, parachute pants and, the big hair. There's Robert with perfectly coiffed hair and, like I said, a suit, singing and doing his thing. And he really did it his way in so many ways. And that's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for Robert Palmer. Love the music that he did. And hopefully by walking through these tracks. So let's go through this again. I'm going to bring my list over here of all the tracks that are on this week's show. So it is Every Kind of People, Bad Case of Loving You, Doctor, John and Mary, Some Guys Have All the Luck, You Are in My System, Get It On, Bang a Gong, Didn't Mean to Turn You On, Early in the Morning, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, featuring UB40, Girl You Want, and finally, Mercy, Mercy Me, I Want You. And with that, I'm Stephen Rose, Songs, Peter Rising, who will join me for my next show. We're just trying to get some in the bank that we can release over the next few months so you don't have to go too long in between shows. Again, if there's a show or an artist you would love for me to cover, let us know and we will dig in deep and we will do that. If you'd like to be on the show, if you think you've got a lot to share about a certain band, let me know. Maybe we'll have you on as a guest on the show. We're always open to it. We do this for fun. We don't make any money doing this. We just do it because we love music and we love sharing what we know. And hopefully you're getting a lot out of this. So let us know. All right. With that, thanks so much for watching. And we will see you again very, very soon. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Welcome to 10 Songs, where each week we dive into the connections to the music that you love, from cover versions and little-known gems to those tracks you just skipped over. We'll show you the common thread across the music you love today and help you find a new favorite with just 10 songs.